Hello and welcome to the second part of our investigation into adding and subtracting integers. This is part 2 for sections 2 and 3 of DMA 10. Recall that last time we went over the double sign rules, the rules for combining integers, for adding and subtracting, then we did some practice with small integers. In this video we're going to practice with some larger numbers, then we're going to look at combined operations, and then next time we're going to go over some applications from the book and some word problems. Let's start with some examples. Our first example is negative 339 plus 279. Now these signs are different. We've got a negative number here, and this plus sign means 279 is positive. So we have different signs. That means we're going to have to subtract these two numbers. The number that we're going to put on top, because this is going to be a long subtraction problem, is going to be the number with the largest absolute value. So we'll put 339 on top, and then we're going to have to subtract 279 from that. Okay. So we subtract the small one from the larger one. And recall that the sign of our answer is going to be the sign of the larger number, which is negative. I'm going to go ahead and write that in now so we don't forget to do it later. Then we're going to start subtracting over on the right column. We're going to do 9 minus 9, and 9 minus 9 is 0. Then we're going to move into the tens column. We can't do 3 minus 7 because 3 is smaller than 7, so we're going to have to borrow. We're going to borrow one from the next digit over, so we're going to borrow from the hundreds place. Okay? We take one away, so that's going to become a 2. Okay? And then this 3 now becomes 13. So this is great, because now we can do 13 minus 7. That's going to be 6. And then we move over into subtract in the hundreds place, and 2 minus 2 is 0. But we don't have to write the 0 in there. It's just going to be implied since that's the last digit. So the answer to this first problem is going to be negative 60. All right, our second problem, 589 plus a negative 224. We've got a double sign here that we're going to want to get rid of before we do any operations. So these signs are different. We have a plus and a minus. When they're different, we're going to get a minus. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite this. We have 589 minus 224. Okay. Signs are different. We have a positive and a negative. Okay, so that means we're going to subtract these two numbers. I'm going to go ahead and write the 589 on top and 224 on the bottom. And now we can subtract. 9 minus 4 is going to give us 5. 8 minus 2 is going to give us 6. Then 5 minus 2 will give us 3. So since the bigger number here was positive, the 589, we're going to get a positive 365. Here's a couple more practice problems. Our first problem, negative 979 minus a negative 44,879. We've got some big numbers here. Again, the first thing that we're going to want to do before we attack any of these problems is get rid of these double signs over here. We have a negative and a negative. Since these are the same, it's going to be a plus. When we rewrite that, we get negative 979 plus 44,879. Alright, we've got different signs here. We've got a negative and a positive, so when they're different, we're going to subtract. Remember, we always lead with the bigger number, so we're going to put the 44,879 on top, and then the 979 on the bottom, and we're subtracting these two. The sign of our answer is going to be the larger number, which is the positive 44,879, so we can put a little plus sign here to remember that. So now we start subtracting on the right. 9 minus 9 is 0. 7 minus 7 is 0. We can't do 8 minus 9 because 8 is smaller than 9, so we're going to have to borrow again. We borrow from the 4, and it becomes a 3, and then the 8 becomes an 18. We can do 18 minus 9, that's going to be 9. Moving over to the thousands place, 3 minus nothing is going to be 3, and then 4 minus nothing is going to be 4. So our answer here is going to be 43,900. For our second example, we have negative 376 plus 1,000. There's no double signs to get rid of, so we can start combining these numbers. We've got a negative and a positive, which means we're going to subtract, and we're going to put the larger number on the top. So it'll be 1,000 minus 376. The bigger of these two numbers is positive, so our answer is going to be positive. We can put that plus in there to remind us. Now it's time to subtract. We start off with 6 minus 0 on the right-hand side in the ones place. We can't do 0 minus 6, so we have to borrow. But when we go a place over, there's nothing to borrow from. Okay? There's nothing to take away from a 0. And again, if we go even a further space, we can't borrow from anything here. So when we're borrowing with zeros in between, we need to go all the way over to the first number where we see a digit, which is going to be the ones here in the thousands place. Okay, we're going to take one away from that, and it's going to become a 0. 1 minus itself is 0. Okay, the numbers in between are going to become 9s, and the last digit where we needed our initial borrowing is going to become a 10. We're going to add a 10 to that number, so 0 plus 1 is going to be 10. Okay. So now when we subtract, we can do 10 minus 6, great, that's going to be a 4. We now have a 9 minus 7, which is going to be 2, and a 9 minus 3, which is 6. And then 0 minus nothing, just 0. So our answer is going to be a positive 624. Okay, so keep that in mind. When you need to borrow and there are zeros in between, always go to the first digit non-zero digit that you find. The zeros in the middle are going to become 9s, and then you add 10 to the number that you needed to borrow with. Now let's have a look at some combined operations. If you'll see in our first example here, we've got two different cases of double signs that we're going to want to take care of before we can combine anything. We've got plus minus here, those are different. We'll replace those with a minus. And again, we have another plus minus here. Different signs will be minus. So let's rewrite this problem without any double signs. We'll have a 6 minus 4 minus 13 plus 7. Okay. Now we're going to start our addition and subtraction all the way on the left. We're always going to work from left to right. Okay, we don't want to start in the middle or at the end. We'll always start on the left. So we're going to start with 6 minus 4. And I find it helpful to underline what step you're working on so we don't get lost. Positive 6 minus 4 will give us 2. Okay, and then we're going to have to bring down everything that we haven't used. So that minus 13 and that plus 7 will bring down. Okay. Again, working at from the leftmost operation, we've got a 2 minus 13. This is a positive 2 and a negative 13. These signs are different, so we'll subtract the 2 and get 11 and keep the sign of the bigger number, which was negative. Now we bring down, again, everything that we haven't used, this plus 7. Okay. And now we have this final step, negative 11 plus 7. Okay. These are different, so we're going to subtract these two. 11 minus 7 will be 4. We'll keep the sign of the larger number, which was negative, so our answer for this one is negative 4. In our second example, you'll notice that we have a set of numbers grouped in parentheses here. This is kind of an introduction to order of operations that we're going to see later on in this module. Okay, the set of parentheses says, do this operation first. So instead of working traditionally from left to right like we did before, we have to do what's inside the parentheses first before we can do anything outside of the parentheses. So this is what we're going to do first, the negative 7 plus 15. No double signs to get rid of, so we just look at these numbers. They're different, so we're going to subtract. 15 minus 7 is 8, and it's going to be a positive 8. Then we bring down everything we haven't used. I brought down these parentheses, but we didn't really need to. As soon as we get just a single digit left in the parentheses, those parentheses can go away. We sometimes leave them if this happened to be negative, So we would notice that there was a double sign here, but in this case we don't need them, so let's just rewrite it without the parentheses. Negative 13 plus 8. Okay. These are different signed numbers, so we're going to subtract them. 13 minus 8 will be 5, and we'll keep the sign at the bigger number, which is negative. So our answer for this problem is negative 5. Here are two more examples of combined operations. So let's start with the first. We'll notice we have two sets of parentheses up here. We have to do this 6 minus 4 and then this 1 minus 2 before we can do the subtraction in the middle. Okay, so let's do that. We can do 6 minus 4, which is going to be 2. I'm going to bring down the minus sign from the middle right now. And then I'll do the 1 minus 2. Those are different, so I'll subtract and get 1, and it's a negative 1, right? Because the larger of those two numbers was negative. So now I have 2 minus negative 1. And this is one of those cases where we might keep that number in parentheses. Okay. So we have a double sign here. Right? A negative and negative. Those are the same, so it'll become plus. So when we rewrite this, we would get 2 plus 1, or 3. In the second example, we have two grouping sets. We have parentheses here, and we've got brackets here. We use brackets after we've used parentheses, just as a visual cue that, like, we could use two sets of parentheses, but the bracket's a visual cue saying that there's another set inside. Okay. So let's look at this here. There's nothing to do inside the set of parentheses. Okay. There's just an integer there. And those parentheses have been put there to show that there's a double sign, a negative and a negative. So there's nothing to do there. So we're going to start focusing on what's going on in these brackets. Alright, we've got a double sign that we need to get rid of, a minus minus, which will become a plus. So when we rewrite this, we'll get negative 8 minus 4 plus 6. Okay. Continue to work inside those brackets. Now that we've got rid of the double signs, we can add those together. 4 plus 6 will give us a positive 10. Now we need to remember to bring down the negative that was outside those brackets and the negative 8. Now we can combine these last two numbers. We've got a negative and a negative. Those signs are the same, so we'll add them together and get 18. Since our sign started as negative, our answer will be negative as well. So the answer to our second example is going to be negative 18. So to review, in this video we did some practice with adding and subtracting larger integers, and then we did some combined operations and learned a little bit about parentheses and how those work. In the next video, we're going to cover some applications from the textbook and some word problems, so we'll see you next time.